We're going to have Dave Bartoo on here in about 1 minute. The Out of Bounds Show. SEC Insider Hit is brought to you by Mississippi Urology. That's where I got my vasectomy 15 years ago. And look, kids are expensive. And that's the procedure that I wanted to get. They do other things. But it's still summertime for several weeks. And what you do is you go in on a Friday. Well, you schedule it. It takes about 15 minutes. It doesn't hurt. I even drove myself home. Mississippi Urology. That's the place to go for your vasectomy. And then they'll give you this sheet of, all right, so they give you a sheet of paper, one sheet. They tell you what not to do or what to do and what not to do. If you follow it, you're going to be good. And so for at least 48 hours, you don't lift anything heavy and so on. You get your beverage of choice, Modelo, Four Roses bourbon, whatever, and you just like pull up a bunch of college football games or Netflix, and then on Monday you're good to go. Mississippi Urology Clinic. That's where you book your vasectomy. And as I said in the commercial, I love my kids, but two's enough and they're expensive.
Ooh, so tasty and ironic.
No question. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We welcome in the Matrix Man at CFB Matrix on Twitter. I get the sense he's kind of getting revved up. He's kind of coming out of the woods.
Oh, dude, I am jacked up. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, my gosh. No, actually, the best vasectomy weekend is the opening weekend of Final Four.
Yes. Yes.
That is absolutely. You walk in. You walk in on a early as it could Thursday morning. You walk in and you just sit on your butt until Monday. No pain. Boom. Done. Piece of cake. Easiest thing. Easiest thing.
You know, I had a buddy. So I followed the checklist, Bartoo, that the nurse gave me, right? I mean, I didn't want to be in pain. And right. I had a friend who got a vasectomy at Mississippi Urology, and, of course, they did a great job. Well, the next day, he gets up, and he's feeling great. So he gets on a riding lawnmower. Well, guess what? About 10 hours later, he didn't feel so great.
Don't do it anymore.
I mean, it's not hard to figure out, right, Bartoo?
Dude, you can't teach stupid sometimes. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. It was. Do we have time to tell my doctor vasectomy story?
Yeah.
While I was in the chair.
Yeah.
Dude. So I'm in the chair, right? And this is, I can't even remember his name. He was a referral and real good friend of one of my other doctors. And he's just casually going about his business. Everything's numb. And he starts talking now. If anything ever happens, he goes, I got to tell you a story to tell everybody the same story. If anything happens and your wife gets pregnant, I want you to keep this in mind. He goes, I've been doing this for 21 years. And then I feel this snip, and he holds up this section of tube. He goes, I'm taking that out and I'm burning both ends. You know, and he goes, I've been doing this 21 years. He goes, the first person that came in yelling at me about how I'm a terrible doctor, his wife's pregnant, blah blah blah, and so we did a test. Wasn't his baby.
Oh.
And then he goes snip. He goes, there's the other tube, and I'm burning both ends.
Oh man.
He goes, the second guy that came in, same thing, wasn't his baby.
Oh.
He goes, third guy came in. I told him the story I'm telling you now. He didn't opt for the test.
Wow.
He's like, I am telling you right now, if your wife has a baby, it ain't because of here.
Man, what a way to find out that your wife's having an affair. Wow.
Yeah. He's like, so if she does get pregnant, just understand. The odds are not in your favor.
Incredible. Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds Show, storytelling time. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. All right, let's switch gears if we can from vasectomy to college football. Yesterday, what's that guy's name, Blake? The Bear? Yeah. Chris Felica tweeted out, and you responded to him. He said, if you couldn't bet on Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, or Oklahoma as your national champion and you're at a sports book or something, what team would you pick? And you immediately replied, Texas. Tell us why.
They mostly meet the criteria of a national championship profile, top 10 recruiter, better than a B-minus offensive coordinator, better than a B-minus defensive coordinator. In fact, they have one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. They're coming off a season in which their offensive scoring efficiency was better than top 25 in the country. Every national title winner has done that, except Auburn in 2010. So when it comes right down to the main criteria, coaching and talent and performance, Texas checks the box. Oregon's right there too. Don't get me wrong. Oregon would have been number 2 because he listed some other teams. Oregon, USC. I would have put them 1A, 1B behind Texas. They just don't have the talent profile that Texas has put together over the last 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think Sark's walking into a rebuild by any stretch. Herman may not have won enough games, but I think the table is almost set. Obviously, they have to upgrade in some areas. I haven't picked apart their roster. But my point is, Bartoo, he's walking into a pretty darn good situation. Almost Kirby Smart walking in for Mark Richt, who was winning but not quite winning big enough. You agree or disagree there, Bartoo?
Yeah, it's turnkey, right?
Yeah.
He's walking into a turnkey franchise here. Texas was number 14 in total scoring efficiency last year. They were this close to being Texas A&M. Texas A&M was, what were they, 5th last year? I mean, they lost one football game, but dude, they beat Vanderbilt by 5. They had a lot of close games. They won, all their games except one. But like Texas, they just weren't good enough to be elite. But they were that close to being elite. So, to me, Texas and Texas A&M weren't that far apart. And with Steve walking into Texas right now, I think it's about as turnkey as it gets. This was a really good team last year. It has recruited really well. They haven't lost a lot in the transfer portal. And I think Pete Kwiatkowski is going to be a massive surprise to the Big 12 this season.
For our listeners, he was the freak defensive coordinator for the Washington Huskies for a while. And Bartoo knows all about him.
I am glad he's out of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
He's going to be awesome. He is. In fact, I think this is going to be like the year of the DC, in terms of the impact that they have. So the Big 12, you got Pete Kwiatkowski. I think in the Pac-12, you have DeRuyter to Oregon. I think that's going to be immediate impact. Bet the under in the Ohio State Duck game in the opener. You have Don Brown at Arizona, who went from Michigan to Arizona. Everybody I talked to that I work for in the Big Ten, their number one thing that they're happy with in the offseason is Don Brown's the hell out of Michigan because that guy's psycho. Okay, but specifically in your backyard, I think the biggest guy I got circled for a possible impact. And his career grade as a DC is phenomenal, but we just don't know how it's going to come together. But it's going to be Derek Mason at Auburn. I think Auburn is being underappreciated. I think they can be an absolute season wrecker because people are going to look past them with the new coaching staff.
Yeah, Auburn could be this big pain in the side type team, I think is where Bartoo's going. They're not going to win the West. But, man, they could mess you up or somebody in the East along the way because Mason, according to Bartoo, is a freak. I mean, he was fantastic at Stanford, and considering who Vanderbilt was on the defensive side of the football, they were still really good many of Saturdays. It would make it difficult for you to move the ball or score once you got in the red zone. Hey, I want to go to Don Brown real quick because Harbaugh's always a big name, even though it's not SEC. And he hasn't been able to do what they want him to do. But as you pointed out, he's won a ton of games. And as you pointed out, hey, they're just not as good as Ohio State. And they're not going to beat Ohio State with for the most part, with their current talent profile. But talk about the blow that Don Brown, his defensive coordinator, that was kind of keeping everything together. Discuss what kind of blow that could be for a Michigan Wolverine program that's trying to overcome the obstacles in the Big Ten, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first problem with Michigan is not Jim Harbaugh. It is not the recruiting. It is the level of expectations. This has never been an elite program. I mean, it's funny, people rag on Mac Brown for, like, winning one title in 20 years. Dude, Bo Schembechler didn't win anything. Nothing. No titles. No, I mean, Michigan is, I mean, they have, what, one national title in 50, 60 years?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the first thing we got to do with Michigan is just understand that they're not elite. They've never been elite. They're not likely to be. I think we expect too much out of them. I've done it. I've fallen into that trap. You know, and so they're the third best recruiter in their conference. That's their spot. Think about all the other third best recruiters. That's Auburn. Okay, that's Tennessee. That is Utah. That is Iowa. That is Stanford. You know, there's, other than Auburn making one really good run, Tennessee the year after Manning, there's really been nothing there. So I think you got to temper your expectations. With Michigan, I think Harbaugh's done a very good job there. Don Brown, the impact of it, you know, top 5 defensive coordinator in college football, but talking to a lot of guys, the difficulty in working with Don Brown is he plays tackle football 24/7. And what I mean by that is he doesn't care what the offense is doing. He doesn't care if it's supposed to be. There's no down days. Oh, quarterback practice, kill that guy. I mean, it is go, 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 go. And my understanding is, working with him at times, the motor is so constant for defense, and that's his focus. He doesn't care about nothing else. It is taxing. It wears on you. It's mentally tough. So I'm
Isn't that
excited
a good thing?
for Arizona. Yeah, I think it's a good thing early on, but you know, at some point, I think it just wears guys down. I think a lot of it is the concern that, well, the concern. I've never talked to Michigan people about it, okay, but the concern I got from other teams that when they were playing Michigan is. And if you're a fan, this sounds like a positive one, right? Oh, dude, his guys hit hard all the time. You know, even if you beat these guys, you're walking home bloody and injured, and it's going to suck. You know, Sunday's going to be horrible. Monday's going to be worse. But the problem, my understanding is the problem was that's how it was in practice, too. You know, stop hitting everybody, dude. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword there. You love the energy and the dedication and the you love the thought that going into a game that your opponent's going, oh, God, we got to play Don Brown this weekend. Son of a gun. Okay, guys, get the ice out. We are going to get beat to hell. So if we're going to get beat to hell, we might as well try to win. But understand, we're going to get beat to hell. So, you know, now what it was replaced with, you know, Jim he's gone through a new OC, new DC. You know, he got kind of a new staff there. They're trying to retool. So, again, I think the first thing is we should not be setting the bar for Michigan as high as we do because it's just not it's never been an elite program. Lloyd Carr's their best head coach. He won a national title there. That's amazing. It's like Fulmer winning at Tennessee, even more so. So I think we need to lower the bar, and this year I just don't see Michigan with the coaching turnover. I don't see them being one of those teams that's competing for a playoff spot this year.
But the flip side is, Bartoo, and you know this, Dave Bartoo on the Modelo guest line, College Football Matrix. When you're told for 50 years and over several generations that you are elite and you're a blue blood, you can't, you know, we know this as sports fans, right? Once we think something, especially as guys, we can't delete it or shake it. So it's kind of like Nebraska, right? A little, you know, they think it's this, and then there was a paradigm shift with cable TV on Nebraska. With Michigan, their fan base is never going to be able to accept what you You're right, but they will never be able to accept what you just laid out, Bartoo.
Well, exactly. It's kind of like the Notre Dame fan as well. Notre Dame is a better recruiter. Notre Dame should be over the long term better than Michigan, but you see this everywhere with programs that have an elite or a semi-elite past. I mean, look at Arkansas football. I mean, they've won national titles outright. Man, how far away is that horizon now? Right? But in the back of their mind, well, we were able to do it at one time.
Right.
Okay, that was a different scenario. That was also 9, 10, or 11 games. Now that we're going to 15, 16, 17 games, every time you add a game, it is in favor of the elite talent. Every time you add a game, it allows the elite talent one more chance to beat you. Okay, so understand that in the end, adding games is great from a viewership standpoint, but it allows the better teams the opportunity to rise to the top. It doesn't allow for the little guy to create the upset, which you need to do in a short game or a short season. So, you can see that all over the country where there's teams that did have that elite pass, and it's not just football; it's everything. And it creates this this aura of expectations that is unrealistic.
Yeah. Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds show. If you had to bet over the next 5 or 6 years, okay, so it looks like Jimbo's going to recruit in the top 5 at A&M, but again, they play in the West. It looks like Mullen's going to settle somewhere between about 8 and 10 as a recruiter. If you had to bet $100, $200 over the next 5 or 6 years, who would win the national championship? You going A&M or Florida?
Oh, geez, that is well, it would depend on the recruiting. I think it would depend on a couple things. Florida's recruiting does need to get in the top 10. It hasn't been. If Dan can pull them back up to that top 10, then I would give them a better shot at it. Both teams recruiting in the top at it because the path is easier. Okay, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Kentucky, South Carolina. That is a much easier prospect than Auburn, LSU, Mississippi State, etc. So the path is easier. So I'd go with that. But Dan, there's no elite coaching at Florida right now. There isn't at A&M either. I think Dan needs to upgrade his DC or A&M. I mean, they still have Elko. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to last.
Right.
I bet Florida on that. But I think both programs need to change variables in order to make that happen. The biggest variable is just getting rid of Nick Saban.
That's a good point. That's true.
I mean, at this point, Nick has defied so many dang things. It's frustrating. We've gotten into this doldrum of we can't even really pick against Alabama because it just sounds stupid, literally. So, if you try to imagine an Alabama free college football right now over the next 4 years, if there was no Alabama, I would take A&M and their talent profile and Elko over Dan Mullen, his talent profile, and his coaching staff.
Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, Dave Bartoo at CFB Matrix on Twitter. I've got a few minutes here. We're going to a 12-team playoff. Who does that benefit?
Well, we just talked about one thing. It's going to benefit the elite teams that lose a game that knocks them out of a 4-team playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alabama would have never missed a playoff in the last 10 years, right? I mean, kick 6 would have been awesome, but Alabama still would have made it.
That's a good point.
They'd have never missed the playoffs. Alabama might be on a 9-10 game playoff run right now. So who's going to benefit are the elite teams, getting into that championship game. I think the other teams that are going to benefit from it are going to be your elite brands on the G5.
God, they got to get them out of it.
Because if you think about it, the bottom 60% of the Power 5 is going to get into fewer playoff games than the G5s. Yeah. Your top, your number one, number two G5 teams are going to get in the playoffs. So that means that Boise State and Central Florida and Cincinnati and Memphis and maybe a Coastal Carolina, these teams all have a better shot at making the playoffs than Arkansas, than Mississippi State, than Kentucky, than Missouri. I think probably the biggest benefit on the West Coast, small school, should be San Diego State. You can tell kids, hey, come to San Diego State, you got a better shot of going to the playoffs than UCLA. So that's how I would pitch it. So I think what it may do is it won't dilute the elite power at the top. Bama's going to stay Bama. Ohio State's going to stay Ohio State. Okay. Oklahoma's going to be there. Your elites are going to still recruit at a high level because their playoff and championship potential is unchanged. But what I could see happening is your lower end, your Kentucky, your Arkansas, your Missouri, your Iowa State, I could see those teams losing better guys to a Cincinnati, to a Boise, to a Houston, to a program that clearly demonstrates, look, you want to come and win a bunch of football games, have some fun, get into the college football playoff? Come here. We're going to have more fun here. We're going to get into a playoff game, and it's going to be more exciting if you
53-3, but we're going to get to the playoffs. Yeah.
Right. Well, but that's no different than in pretty much anywhere else.
That's true.
But that's to me how you sell it. So I think the downside to it is, besides having too many games, I think the downside to it could be a dilution at the lower end.
They got to get the G5 out of this, Bartoo. I mean, they need their own playoff. It's just, this is ridiculous. I mean, Central Florida, Cincinnati, Memphis, Houston getting in this thing, not playing anybody. Right. I mean, not playing near the schedule of a 9-3 SEC team that, is good and may figure it out down the stretch the last few weeks, but you can tell is one of the best teams in the country. But like you said, the Natty's sitting there at 12-0 or 11-1.
Exactly. I mean, there's probably most of your 7-5, 8-4, even your 6-6 SEC teams are going to beat that top 2-3 G5.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that part of it there. I'm just saying that the talent may get diluted at the bottom and the gap grow between the elites and everybody else even more.
Thanks you, Bloody Mary, Wild Man. We appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Later, bro. Thanks for having me on.
See you, buddy. Dave Bartoo on the Modelo guest line. If you missed any of the show, including 20 minutes on the iconic dock, bar, nightclub, whatever you want to call it, which was incredible earlier in the show, please hit Apple Podcasts and search The Out of Bounds Show. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. That's where you go before you hit Live Oaks Golf Club. Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. See you tomorrow.